Hello, everyone. It's time for another At the Movies, and as promised, last time we did movies about video games, and now we're doing movies based on video games. Not much reason to belabor things further than that, so let's get this out of the way right now. Most of these movies, which I don't think anyone watching this is going to be super surprised to hear this, are very bad. This was probably the biggest slog that we've had to do for these videos so far, at least for me, in terms of watching just really poor quality movies.
Yeah, these are the most just like dog shit awful that we've covered so far. For the Bush era one, it was like I don't want to say a healthy mix of good and bad. It was mostly bad. But with that, at least there was something of merit to discuss, and I feel like they each brought something unique to the table. I think all of the movies that we saw, I mean, save for like Resident Evil, have all of the same types of flaws, and I think broadly painting a picture from the start here, I think that the video game movies or video game adaptations are generally bad. I don't think the fact that they're disconnected from the source material a lot of the times is like inherently a bad thing. You're trying to appeal to a larger audience. Like, there's no need to be precious about source material. It's a different medium. They are not interested in replicating anything stylistically similar to the experience of playing a video game. They're like solely interested on like cashing in on name recognition.
Yeah, and they're like, also just not very well made movies. Like, there's not a ton of craft on display in most.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just because they're pump and dump, like trying to make money off of, oh, I recognize fucking Final Fantasy, or I have the Angry Birds app on my phone. Like, let's just fucking sit my kid down.
Well, that's the other thing, is that not only is it stuff that's cashing in on things that's popular, so that there's not really much thought into even, you know, the text of the adaptation, let alone the style or the use of the form or anything regarding the relationship of film to video games, which I think basically none of these movies are interested in. Which, again, like you said, isn't inherently a bad thing, but it does kind of make it less interesting for our purposes. Because it's Hollywood, these are all also, a lot of them are things that were popular years before they ended up coming out. So, like, we watched Warcraft, and that came out in 2016, based on, I mean, really based on the original Warcraft movie, or Warcraft game, which came out in the 90s, and the series in general. Like, the story of it is based on the original Warcraft game, the RTS game, but obviously the impetus for wanting to make a Warcraft movie came from the success of World of Warcraft, which by the time this movie came out was already a decade old. Yes, while Angry Birds was probably still a popular app, especially among young children who are very obviously the target audience for the movie in 2016, I'm going to say that it probably didn't come out when Angry Birds was at like its zenith of popularity, necessarily.
Yeah, definitely like had missed the mark. I mean, it's like the nature of movies having to be in development. I mean, movies and video games both like take certainly a long time.
Yeah.
And I think, as is the case with like Angry Birds, they're constantly just like doing like, oh, this is Star Wars Angry Birds or whatever, or they're trying to do their own little spin on it each time to get like more people interested. But those are for the heads, and I think the mainstream public, I don't know, pretty much like tuned out of that at a certain point.
Yeah.
And the adaptations are trying to capture the audience of fans. I mean, people are gonna like see it regardless, and also like widen it a little bit to people who don't know. I mean, it's like the classic like I think it's terrible because it's like you're trying to sell two things at once and like fumbling the ball on both ends, because it's just like a lot of these are just big commercials. You
And a lot of them weren't towering commercial successes, at least
Yeah,
domestically.
exactly. And it's like you're making these big commercials with no interest in having like a unique voice behind it, and just trying to like check the boxes of like this appeals to everyone, or like this is a broad appeal. Or some of these I think are just like too fucking in the weeds.
The example of the other end of that spectrum is definitely Final Fantasy Spirits Within. By the way, I guess I should say what movies we watched. We watched the Super Mario Brothers movie, Resident Evil, Final Fantasy Spirits Within, Warcraft, the Angry Birds movie, and Tomb Raider 2018 with Alicia Vikander, not the... I was going to say superior, but honestly they're on about the same level for me, Angelina Jolie movie. I think we should start with one of the earlier ones, which is also the one that I suspect was both of our favorites, which was Resident Evil. I really like that movie, actually. I think it's pretty fun. It's nothing, groundbreaking or crazy or anything, but it's a fun little action ride. It's tense. I actually do think it gives a decent feel of a video game.
I agree. I think like it does have like there are a lot of like ticking clock like stuff.
It's also
like,
just like a series of tasks.
Exactly.
Plot.
Exactly. That's like the plot does feel like a video game, and then the whole like kind of fake out ending, like setting up more.
Yeah.
Like it is.
And like the opening, I love the opening of the movie with the voiceover over the computer graphics of everything, where they're talking about the virus.
Like the success of the movie goes hand in hand with like you have a established and talented director, Paul W.S. Anderson, and like the fact that he is an artist. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of his filmography, and I would like to continue his Resident Evil movies. But he's someone who's interested in like the digital aesthetic, interested in like video games in general, has like neat like tourist like fixations, like having his wife now wife Mila Jovovich be in like a whole fuck ton of his movies, and there's a unique perspective that's present here that I think is severely lacking, and I think it goes well with my other favorite being the Mario Brothers movie. I mean, not like favorite by like that one is less of a good movie, but I think there is some like aspirational stuff or like a quality there that video game adaptations miss out on and should really like include more of, which is just like completely disregarding the source material, or maybe not explicitly that, but like disregarding the source material to build a world that's like entirely its own.
Yeah, building it like to the strengths of the film form to kind of echo the video games, which, they play to the strengths of the video game medium. I think both Mario Brothers and Resident Evil do that. Mario Brothers being a kind of like very effects heavy. I mean, it's also almost like the Tim Burton Batman movies, the like expansive city, weird creature effects and everything.
Yeah, no, it's like it has a stylish look to it that like isn't like what a Mario game looks like at all, but is a unique visual flair that a lot of these movies lack and are just like completely boring and uninteresting. Like Angry Birds is certainly like true to the world of Angry Birds, but it's just like flat, ugly CG.
Well, yeah, I mean the problem with that is that the world of Angry Birds sucks. And
and Warcraft like also just like a CG nightmare of like
very ugly movie.
Just like bland looking digital that's
and
like
that's source material that you could make stuff that's visually interesting, but a lot of it just looks like I mean, the fact of the matter is, by 2016 especially, and now, like, we've seen so many big CGI creatures in movies that it's just kind of like a law of diminishing returns kind of thing, where now,
And
like, every movie's got one of these shits.
the CG is dedicated to like preserving like realism to a certain extent. Like one of the most frustrating things for me, like a weird kind of hyper specific detail to focus in on about the Warcraft movie, is that the human orc hybrid woman like looks more humanoid than like orc, and
Yeah.
like I think that's like a missed opportunity to like to, if you were interested in, I mean, one, you could, for a lot of the orc stuff, I think if you went a more practical route or like combined practical and CG, you could
Oh yeah, the
like,
Jim Henson Company would fuck up that movie in a good way.
it would be crazy. But
Like, if they had made that movie like The Dark Crystal, it could have been really cool.
yeah, but there's no interest in doing that. CG now is just trying to like replicate real life. Even fantastical things are
Right.
like, what is the most like realistic version of it, and it's just,
And of course,
winds
it's
up,
only realism in a, pixelated, fidelity sense, and not necessarily looking believable like a lot of, for instance, Dark Crystal, puppetry and creature effects look. I mean, obviously, you are aware when you watch The Dark Crystal, I would hope that those things are not real, but they are there in the camera, so there is a sense of realness to them that you don't always get with even the best CGI effects, and you certainly do not get that in the Warcraft movie. And this goes beyond the effects, but also just the way that it's shot and lit and everything and composed. It's also just a very ugly and uninteresting looking movie. And incredibly boring in terms of the plot and everything. I'm sure if you like Warcraft, I don't know, if anyone watching this is a big Warcraft like lore fan and thinks the movie is great because it does great service to that, very happy for you. I don't have any exposure to that series, so I can't don't have an opinion on that, but as a movie, it's pretty smelly.
yeah. I mean, it's just like there is like a weird, I mean, in terms of, I think, what I've been saying already, of like you're trying to do fan service but try to appeal to a broader
Yes.
audience. I think that can like fumble the ball with that, because you're trying to do like hyper specific things that like create like a very focused world that people are attached to. I mean, in the case of Warcraft in particular,
Right.
and also have like the generic like version of the story that you can tell that like can supposedly get anyone interested.
Right.
And Warcraft is just this weird human orc race war, and it's fucking boring. Like, who
Yeah,
cares?
you really
Like,
only care about it if you already cared about that story. And, like, the thing is, like, everybody plays video games, but individual game franchises are relatively niche things to make, like, $150 movies out of. And then when you get things that are truly have, like, mass broad appeal, you get shit like Angry Birds, which is the reason that they have mass appeal is because as games, they're very stripped down and don't really have a lot of meat to them, because they're just meant to be something you play on your fucking phone. And so when you want to make a whole 90-minute movie out of it, I mean, the only thing that you can really do is just pad it out with, like, poop and piss jokes. And
you pad it out with like the most generic character, like none of
just generic animated movie shit. It's, just like an AI could have written the Angry Birds movie.
There are no like character, like coherently distinct like characters in any of these. There's like certainly no star power.
There's no
present.
characters, there's just voice actors, and they're not even particularly great voice actors. They're just celebrities with voices that you can recognize.
Oh, I fucking like.
Which is what every animated movie does now, of course, but
Angry Birds is like so egregious in that sense, and it's like hard to get like all that frustrated about a kids movie, but it's just
yeah.
like you fucking have like Jason Sudeikis and Josh Gad are like build up. I mean, Danny McBride, I hate to see him slumming it with this.
Danny McBride was poorly used.
Yeah.
Honestly, that character that he plays would be much better suited for Brad Garrett.
Yeah, I buy that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh well, what if your kid likes Limp Bizkit? Well, we have a Limp Bizkit.
Or what if
track
you like
in the
Limp
opening,
Bizkit and you're seeing this dumb fucking movie with your kid?
and then there's like a pop country song in there, and it's just like, it's weird because it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't build any like consistent like mood or style or approach. It's just all of these movies are just like a very loose like narrative grafted onto games that don't really have particularly strong stories,
But they're popular, which is the reason why you're making
but
movies.
are popular, and so it's just like, well,
That's
okay,
why we're gonna get a Temple Run game, or a Temple Run movie rather.
Are they really? Is that legit?
It's one
or is
in the
that...
works, but I mean, take that with a grain of salt because there's like 35 video games that ostensibly have movie adaptations in the works, and many of them have been in the works
will
for like
fizzle
a
out.
decade.
Yeah,
But I mean, stranger things have happened. I don't know. The Angry Birds movie was also in talks for a really long time, and then ended up happening, and they made 2 of them. So I don't know.
Well, did the second one get a theatrical release?
Yeah.
Or oh damn, I
And
didn't.
it was decently made money.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, kids will look at any flashing colors on a screen. So I really hope that by like 2040 kids movies are just like just like bouncing CGI colorful blobs screaming with like trap music under it. And kids will think it's the best shit ever. Because that's basically what they like now, is just wiggling to rap songs and watching like a dog voiced by Kevin Hart or whatever.
I think you wrote the perfect children's movie there.
I want to take a brief moment to talk about Final Fantasy Spirits Within, which I had not seen before. JT didn't watch it.
I was just, at this point, I was just so fed up. And
you didn't miss
like,
much. So I don't like know anything about Final Fantasy, but I don't think I really need to, because this movie, as I learned about an hour into watching it, is not based on any actual Final Fantasy game or storyline as far as I can tell. I thought it was interesting because at the time of its release, it was considered a technical achievement, pretty significant, because it was a very early use of extensive motion capture CGI in 2001. And I suppose for 2001, the computer animation is fairly impressive. Watching it today, it basically, everything looks like a PS4 level cutscene, and not particularly good. It's basically like, those YouTube videos that are just compilations of all of the cutscenes from video games, and they call it like the video game The Movie or whatever. That's what this is. It's like, I imagine all of these scenes in between like 6 hours in between each scene of like turn-based battles and shit. The plot has stuff to do with like Gaia stuff, like Earth.
Yeah,
spirits,
Mother Earth, Gaia.
stuff like that.
It's a plant. You can smoke it.
Right, exactly. It's natural.
Mm-hmm.
It comes from the Earth. But I didn't really get any of that shit. And it's all extremely like generic kind of stuff. I mean, it is stuff that you would expect to see in a video game. And the thing is, video games can have rote and stupid plots, because the point of them is you play them, and the plot is all just stuff that you give yourself to contextualize your play in some way. But with this, you just get that without the playing part, and it's not as fun. And it's also the fact that all of the characters are voiced and mocapped by famous Hollywood actors like Alec Baldwin and Steve Buscemi. The main character is played by Ming-Na Wen, who most people will know as the voice of Mulan. And it's incredibly distracting and silly because the characters, their like mouth movements and everything looks like shit, looks really dumb. It's very Uncanny Valley in the same way that similar movies around the same time period like Polar Express and Beowulf are. I kind of wish that they had just made this a live action movie. Probably would have at least been a little bit more fun to watch. That's my report on that movie. It stinks.
I mean, I think it's really like that, like, I don't know, one thing that I was like had me inherently so disinterested in it is because it's just like again, it's like the flat like CG textures of like trying to emulate realism, which is just like, I think a lot of problems with like contemporary video games are that it's like they're not expressive and are again like falling into that trap of trying to have like
at least
like
very popular video games.
Yeah, like photorealistic, like true to life shit, as opposed to like doing like
anything else.
Literally anything else. And it's like I don't want to like watch like 2 hours of CG real people when there are plenty of movies with real people that get the job done.
I want to say about the Mario Brothers movie. First of all, that movie has a reputation as like one of the worst movies ever made, and I think it's undeserved. I think it's a perfectly fine movie. Like you said earlier, I think it has some interesting ideas in it and some interesting visuals. I also think it's funny that they have two Italian brothers being played by a Latino and a British man.
It is hilarious in that regard. Like
Bob Hoskins makes a great Mario, though.
It blazes its own path in like a very unique and distinct way. And that's like, I mean, again, the Tomb Raider one just didn't do a lot for me because it's pretty like bland and generic, and like the visual aesthetic of it is just like serious contemporary blockbuster, and
a lot of gray and brown.
Exactly. At gray and brown, like going in like dark places, and just such a boring story that I didn't care about. Like I don't care about the Laura Croft's like daddy issues or whatever. Yeah. It was nice to see Walton Goggins. Like
I was gonna say, I liked Walton Goggins in the movie.
Walton Goggins is good, and
I also
Vikander
honestly,
is not bad. Like
yeah, I was gonna say, I think she is a big part of what kept me more interested than I would have been. It kind of lost me in like the second half, but especially the middle bit where she like is like getting the shit beat out of her constantly for like 30 minutes. And is like finding her dad, and where like the plot sort of really gets going, and she meets Walton Goggins and everything. That stuff I thought was like reasonably tense. I was like finding myself actually watching it intently, and some of the action stuff, while visually not really what I like, was like just in terms of what was happening was kind of exciting in the middle bit. But I think in general, Alicia Vikander's performance kind of elevated the material a little bit. In general, though, I think, yeah, it has the same kind of issue as a lot of blockbusters nowadays, where it's visually pretty flat, bland, unappealing looking, poorly edited action a lot of the time.
It annoyed me how English it was, especially in the very beginning. Like, just not an exciting
also,
place.
Also, I don't know, like, I'm not British, so I guess I'm not the best gauge on, like, what's a good British accent, but Vikander's British accent was a little bit iffy sometimes to me, because she is not British, she's, like, Scandinavian. Mm-hmm. And I could tell But I mean, maybe it's just because I know what her actual voice sounds like, but it's not really saying much considering the crop of movies that we watch. But I do put it in like the top half or so of the movies that we watched. It was more entertaining more of the time.
I like this a little bit less than you, but is like more competently constructed than just some complete disasters of movies.
Yeah.
And honestly, with this crop of flicks, that's really saying a lot.
Yeah. I think the verdict is in that most video game movies, obviously we haven't watched all of them, but I think just knowing what I do about a lot of the other ones that are out there, it's probably going to be the same way for most of them. That they suffer from a lack of stylistic interest in the source material or in adding any sort of unique voice to what they're presenting outside of just shoving in your face the stuff that you already like, which is basically what everything in culture is now. Me and JT both over the past weekend watched the new Space Jam movie, and that's a particularly egregious example of that, where increasingly our culture is just an Ouroboros of constantly giving you the last 20 to 40 years again. I would very much like to see some movies based on games that will, kind of do a little bit more with it. And at the very least, if you don't try to stylistically do anything super interesting with video games and movies, at least
just make it a good movie.
Movies fun. Make them good, at least.
You don't have to look, I understand it's asking for a lot for them to be on the edge of new media and traditional cinema and that overlap and trying to do something with a digital aesthetic, but at least make a good movie. I'm begging for that. Movie. Just make a good movie. Just make me hoot.
It doesn't even have to be great.
Yeah.
It just has to be good enough. Those are some movies based on video games. Next month we are only going to have a double feature for you instead of doing a bunch of movies. We're just going to have two, but I think they'll be pretty good. Do we want to say what the next one's going to be?
Absolutely.
The next one is going to be a pair of monkey movies. Movies about apes/monkeys. So I think that'll be fun. Me and JT are big fans.
I'm ready to go ape for this.
Yes. So, thank you all as always for watching and for JT for joining in. And I'll see you all next time.